The hydrogen fuel cells hummed their eternal song through Docking Bay 7 Alpha, a cavernous space where starships rested like sleeping metal giants. Crates stamped with corporate logos from a dozen star systems lined the walls, and the air tasted of ozone and recycled atmosphere. Marcus Chen wiped grease from his hands, finishing the last diagnostic on a merchant vessel's landing struts, when Orion's low growl stopped him cold. The dog, a German Shepherd augmented with neural enhancements and bioluminescent patches, along his spine stood rigid, ears flat against his skull. The cyan glow beneath his fur pulsed faster, a biological alarm system Marcus had learned to trust, absolutely during their 3 years together on Neo-Terra Station. "What is it, boy?" Marcus whispered, his hand instinctively moving to the plasma torch still clipped to his belt. Orion's nose twitched, processing sense invisible to human senses. Then he bolted, claws clicking against the metal deck plating, toward the shadows between 2 cargo containers. Marcus ran after him, his heart hammering. The docking bay was supposed to be secure, locked down after the last shift change. But as he rounded the containers, he found Orion standing over a crumpled figure, whimpering softly instead of growling. She was unlike anyone Marcus had ever seen, her skin held an ethereal violet tint, almost translucent in places, revealing a faint network of luminescent veins beneath. Silver hair, long and fine as spider silk, spread around her head like a halo. She wore torn clothing that might have once been elegant, some kind of ceremonial robe in deep blues and purples, now stained with what looked like engine coolant and blood. But it was her swollen belly that made Marcus's breath catch. She was heavily pregnant. "Help." The word came out in accented standard, barely audible. Her eyes fluttered open, large, amber-colored, with vertical pupils that contracted in the docking bay's harsh lighting. "Please, they're coming. For the baby." Orion pressed his nose against her hand, and she flinched before recognizing the gesture as comfort. Her fingers, longer and more delicate than human ones, touched the dog's head with wonder. "I've got you," Marcus said, kneeling beside her. His mind raced through protocols, regulations, the 100 ways this could go wrong. Neo-Terra Medical Station had strict policies about undocumented aliens, especially those avoiding corporate attention. But looking at her terrified face, at the way her hand protectively cradled her belly, he knew there was only one choice. "Can you walk?" She tried to sit up and gasped, her free hand clutching her abdomen. The veins beneath her skin flared brighter, not violet now, but an alarming crimson. Contraction started 2 hours ago. 2 hours? Marcus glanced at Orion, who was already moving toward the bay exit, looking back expectantly. The dog understood. They needed to move. "Okay, we're getting you to medical. Right now." He slipped an arm under her shoulders, helping her stand. She was surprisingly light, her bone structure delicate despite her height. She had to be nearly 6 feet tall. When she leaned against him, he caught her scent, something like jasmine mixed with ozone. Distinctly alien but not unpleasant. "My name is Lyra," she said as they stumbled toward the bay doors. "House of..." "It doesn't matter now. They destroyed everything. Marcus, and that's Orion." He keyed his wristcom, accessing the bay's exit protocols. "Who's after you?" "Helix Corporation." The name came out like a curse. "They want..." "The child. Hybrid genetics. Worth billions on the black market." Marcus had heard of Helix, everyone had. They were one of the mega-corporations that effectively ran half the outer rim, dealing in everything from terraforming to genetic engineering. Ruthless didn't begin to cover it. The bay doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss. The corridor beyond was deserted. Thankfully, most of the station's 20,000 inhabitants were either on shift or in their quarters. The walls here were standard station construction. Titanium-reinforced polymers, covered in holographic panels displaying safety, information, and advertisements. Overhead, the lighting strips cast everything in that peculiar, blue-white glow that never quite felt like daylight. Lyra stumbled and another contraction seized her. She gritted her teeth and Marcus saw that they were slightly pointed, adapted for a different diet than Earth-standard food. The veins in her neck and arms blazed crimson again, creating an intricate pattern that reminded him of circuit boards. "Breathe," he said, the inadequate advice of someone who'd never been through this. "Medical is 3 levels up. There's an express lift at the end of this corridor." Orion ranged ahead, his augmented senses scanning for threats. The bioluminescent patches on his Spine and shoulders pulsed in a steady rhythm, all clear for now. Marcus had spent a small fortune on those augmentations 2 years ago after a close call with station pirates, and he'd never regretted it. They made it to the lift, and Marcus slammed his palm against the control panel. The doors opened immediately, revealing a transparent tube that rose through the station's central atrium. Through the reinforced glass, he could see the city within a station. Residential blocks stacked like children's toys, commercial districts with their endless neon advertisements, industrial sectors where the real work of keeping Neo-Terra alive happened 24 hours a day. "Hold on," he said as the lift engaged. The acceleration pressed them against the back wall. Lyra's breathing had become rapid and shallow. Her eyes squeezed shut. Marcus supported her weight, acutely aware of how fragile she felt despite her alien physiology. Orion pressed against her legs, offering what comfort he could. "Why me?" Marcus asked, not sure if he wanted an answer. "Why hide in my docking bay?" Lyra's eyes opened, meeting his. In that moment he saw not just fear but fierce determination. "Orion found me first, animals. They sense intent. He knew I meant no harm. And you—" She managed a weak smile. "You didn't run. Didn't call security. You're good." The lift shuddered as it reached level 14 medical district. The doors opened onto a nightmare. Alarms were already blaring. Red emergency lights strobed through the corridors, mixing with the standard medical facility whites and blues. Holographic warning signs materialized in mid-air. "Security alert, all personnel. Maintain stations, unauthorized entities detected." "They're here," Lyra whispered. "They found me." Marcus pulled her out of the lift, Orion at their heels. The dog's growl had returned, deeper and more aggressive. His neural implants were probably detecting multiple threats, processing information faster than any human could. The main medical corridor stretched ahead, lined with treatment rooms and diagnostic bays. Medical drones hovered in the air like metal insects, their scanners painting the walls with laser light. Station security forces in black armor jogged past, weapons ready, barely glancing at Marcus and Lyra. "Stop right there!" A voice boomed from a security bot, one of the automated units that supplemented human officers. Its sensor cluster rotated toward them, and Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Unregistered alien detected. Please remain stationary for identification and processing." "She's in labor," Marcus shouted back. "She needs immediate medical attention." The bot's AI processed this. Medical emergency protocols acknowledged. However, subject shows markers consistent with Helix Corporation property tags. "Please remain—" Orion launched himself at the security bot before it could finish. The dog's augmented jaw strength, enhanced by the same biotech that powered his bioluminescent patches, clamped onto the bot's primary sensor cluster. Sparks flew as circuits shorted. "Run!" Marcus didn't wait to see if the bot would recover. He half-carried Lyra down the corridor, following the holographic signs toward emergency intake. Behind them, the damaged bot's alarm added to the cacophony of noise. They burst through the double doors into emergency intake, and the sudden relative quiet was jarring. The room was packed with alien species from across known space: a centaurian with crystalline skin, a family of furry Talaxians, even a methane breather in an environmental suit. But the medical staff moved with practiced efficiency, triaging patients with the help of hovering diagnostic drones. A human nurse, her uniform immaculate despite the chaos outside, looked up sharply. "Name and nature of emergency?" "She's in active labor," Marcus said. "Complications, she's being pursued by corporate security, and I don't know her physiology." The nurse's professional demeanor didn't crack, but her eyes widened slightly at the mention of corporate security. She tapped a holographic panel, and a floating stretcher materialized from a nearby alcove, hovering at waist height. "Get her on the stretcher." "Room 7. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I'm putting her under emergency protection protocols. That buys us maybe 20 minutes before Helix's lawyers override the system. So whatever you're doing, work fast." "Thank you," Marcus breathed. Lyra collapsed onto the stretcher with a gasp of relief. The nurse guided it through a side door, Marcus and Orion following close behind. The treatment room was a marvel of modern xenomedicine, walls lined with medical equipment that could adapt to hundreds of species, diagnostic scanners that floated freely through the air, and a central medical bed that immediately began to morph, adjusting to Lyra's physiology as she was transferred onto it. I'm Nurse Chen, no relation, I'm guessing? She offered Marcus a quick smile before turning her attention to Lyra. A holographic display materialized above the bed, filling with data streams Marcus couldn't begin to interpret. Okay, sweetheart. I need you to tell me everything about your species' birth process, starting with your planet of origin. Zephyra, Lyra managed between breaths. Water world, mostly. Please. The baby is showing strong vital signs, Nurse Chen assured her, though her expression suggested concern. But your blood pressure is elevated, and these readings suggest the stress of running is accelerating your labor. You're at maybe 6 centimeters dilation. This child is coming soon. Orion had positioned himself near the door, his body tense and ready. The bioluminescent patches on his fur now pulsed a warning red. Marcus recognized the signal, multiple threats approaching. A new presence materialized in the room, not physically, but as a holographic projection. The figure was androgynous and vaguely humanoid, composed of shifting blue light particles. When it spoke, its voice came from speakers built into the walls. I am Medadmin 7, primary artificial intelligence. For Neo-Terra Station, the AI's voice was calm, almost soothing. I have been alerted to an anomalous situation involving patient Lyra of Zephyran and pursuing Helix Corporation security forces, per medical ethics protocols and station regulations. This patient is now under sanctuary protection. Any attempt to remove her from medical care will be considered a felony assault. Can you keep them out? Marcus asked. Medadmin 7's hologram flickered, a gesture that might have been the AI equivalent of uncertainty. I can delay. Helix Corporation has significant legal resources and can potentially override my authority within the hour. However, the safety of patients under my care takes absolute priority over corporate claims. Another contraction hit Lyra stronger than before. She cried out, her hands gripping the bed's railings hard enough that Marcus heard the metal creak. The veins beneath her skin flared brilliant crimson, and for a moment he could see her entire circulatory system, alien and beautiful and terrifying. Nurse Chen worked quickly, attaching monitoring patches to Lyra's skin. The baby's coming faster than expected. This is going to be an emergency delivery. Are you the father? She glanced at Marcus. No, I found her. I'm just trying to help. Well, you're helping now. Nurse Chen grabbed his hand and placed it in Lyra's. Talk to her. Keep her calm. Labor stress in Zephyran females can cause vascular collapse. See those veins? They need to stay violet, not red. Red means her system is in crisis mode. Marcus squeezed Lyra's hand gently. Her amber eyes found his, wide with fear and pain. Hey, he said softly. You're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. The baby, she whispered. If Helix takes her, they'll use her DNA, create an army of hybrid soldiers. My people made a pact with Helix for protection. But the price was too high. I ran. I couldn't let them have my daughter. Daughter? Marcus smiled despite everything. She's going to be beautiful, just like her mother. Lyra's laugh turned into a groan as another contraction peaked. Orion whimpered from his position by the door, clearly distressed by her pain but unable to leave his guard post. The holographic display above the bed suddenly flashed red. Nurse Chen cursed, a rarity that made Marcus's blood run cold. Fetal distress. The umbilical equivalent is compressed. We need to deliver now or we'll lose both of them. What do you need? Marcus asked. I need a surgical team, but they're all dealing with the security incident Helix caused. It's just us. Nurse Chen's hands moved across holographic controls, and medical equipment descended from the ceiling. I'm going to talk you through this, Marcus. You're going to be my assistant surgeon. I'm a mechanic, and right now you're all I've got. Medadmin, walk him through the procedure. The AI's hologram moved closer, its form taking on a more defined shape, almost like a teacher at a podium. The procedure is similar to a human cesarean section, with modifications for Zephyran physiology. I will guide your hands. Trust the process. Marcus had never been religious, but he prayed to whatever gods might be listening as Nurse Chen placed surgical gloves in his hands. The material shimmered, nanoscale sensors built into the fabric that would help guide his movements. Lyra looked up at him, and in her eyes he saw absolute trust. Save her, she whispered. Please, save my daughter. Both of you, Marcus said firmly. We're saving both of you. Outside the treatment room, Orion's growl suddenly escalated to a full-throated bark. The security feeds displayed. On one of the holographic panels showed what had triggered his alarm. A squad of Helix corporate security forces, heavily armed and armored, pushing past station security, with the confidence of people who knew their lawyers were better than anyone else's. "They're coming," Medadmin 7 reported. "I estimate 3 minutes until they reach this room." Nurse Chen didn't look up from her preparations. "Then we work fast. Marcus, I need you to focus. Forget everything else. Right now there's just you, me, and this patient. Understood?" Marcus nodded, pushing down the fear, the uncertainty, everything except the need to help. His hand steadied as the nanoscale sensors in the gloves began to guide him, overlaying holographic instructions in his field of vision. "Scalpel," Nurse Chen said, and a medical drone delivered the instrument to his hand. The next minutes blurred into a controlled chaos of medical terminology, precise movements guided by Medadmin 7's instructions, and Nurse Chen's steady voice. Lyra's violet skin parted under the scalpel, revealing layers of muscle and tissue that were simultaneously familiar and utterly alien. The internal structures glowed with that same bioluminescence, creating an otherworldly beauty even in the midst of surgery. "Amniotic sac visible," Medadmin 7 reported. "Cardiac activity strong. Prepare for extraction." Marcus's hands moved almost of their own accord, guided by the smart gloves and the AI's instructions. And then suddenly there she was. The baby emerged into the harsh medical lighting, and the world seemed to hold its breath. She was tiny, perfect, her skin a lighter shade of violet than her mother's, with fine silver hair already visible on her head. But it was her eyes that stopped Marcus cold. They opened immediately, revealing the same amber color as Lyra's, but with a depth that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. She didn't cry. Instead, she made a sound like wind chimes, melodic and pure. "Healthy female infant," Nurse Chen said, her voice thick with emotion. "Hybrid physiology appears stable. Marcus, you just helped deliver what might be the first human Zephyran hybrid ever born." The baby was placed on Lyra's chest, and the mother's tears, luminescent, like liquid pearls, fell onto her daughter's face. "Aria," Lyra whispered. "Her name is Aria." The moment of peace shattered as the treatment room door exploded inward. The explosion wasn't dramatic. Helix Security used precision charges designed to breach without causing collateral damage to valuable assets, but the effect was instantaneous. The door became a twisted sculpture of metal, and armed figures in black armor poured through like water finding a crack. Orion launched himself at the first one through. The dog's augmented strength sent the security officer sprawling, even though the man outweighed him by 100 pounds. Teeth found exposed neck above the armor collar, and the man's scream cut short. "Get them to the emergency bay!" Nurse Chen shouted, already moving. She grabbed an emergency medical pod, a hovering cylinder that could provide life, support and protection, and transferred baby Aria into it before Marcus could process what was happening. "Go, now!" Marcus scooped Lyra from the bed, her surgical site, hastily sealed with medical foam that would hold for maybe 10 minutes. She was weak from the delivery, barely conscious, but her hand reached toward the pod containing Aria. "I've got her," Marcus promised. "Medadmin, we need a route out of here." The AI's hologram appeared, pointing toward a service corridor that had materialized in the wall, a maintenance access that the station systems could open. "This leads to the emergency bay. However, I must warn you that Helix has accessed station systems. They are attempting to override my authority. How long do we have?" "Unknown. My security protocols are sophisticated, but so are their hackers. Go. Now." Marcus ran, one arm supporting Lyra, his other hand guiding the medical pod containing Aria. Behind them, Orion fought like something feral and magnificent. The dog's bioluminescent patches blazed bright red. Combat mode. The augmentations pumping performance-enhancing chemicals through his system. Another security officer went down, then another. But there were too many. "Orion." Marcus called, "Come!" The dog obeyed instantly, breaking off his attack and sprinting after them. A plasma bolt seared the air where he'd been standing a second before, leaving a scorch mark on the wall. The service corridor was narrow, designed for maintenance drones, not people. Marcus had to turn sideways in places, Lyra groaning with each jarring movement. The pod containing Aria floated serenely ahead, its internal systems keeping the newborn stable despite the chaos. "Marcus," Lyra gasped. "Leave me. Take Arya and run. They won't hurt me. I'm still valuable to them." But not happening. "We're all getting out of this." The corridor opened into a vertical shaft and emergency access tube that connected all the station's levels. Magnetic climbing rungs lined the walls, and far below, Marcus could see the emergency bay's distinctive orange lighting. "Med-admin, I need lift access." "Denied," the AI's voice echoed through the shaft. "Helix has locked down all standard lift functions. You must climb." Marcus looked at Lyra, at her weakened state, at the medical pod containing a newborn. Then he looked down the shaft, 50 meters at least, straight down. Orion barked, sharp and commanding. The dog was already on the rungs, his enhanced paws gripping the metal with ease. He looked back at Marcus expectantly. "Okay," Marcus breathed. "Okay, we can do this." He attached the medical pod to his equipment harness using magnetic clamps, praying they'd hold. Lyra wrapped her arms around his neck, her weight slight but her condition precarious, and then he started climbing down, one rung at a time while above them. The sounds of pursuit grew closer. "Med-admin, can you slow them down?" "I am trying," the AI replied. And Marcus heard something in its voice he'd never heard from an artificial intelligence before: fear. "But their systems are sophisticated. They are isolating my control nodes, cutting off my access to station systems. I estimate I have perhaps 2 minutes before I lose all ability to assist you." "Then make those 2 minutes count." The descent was agony. Each rung pressed into Marcus's hands, Lyra's weight pulling at his shoulders, the medical pod swinging precariously from his harness. Orion climbed below them, looking up constantly, ready to catch the pod if it fell. Above, Marcus heard voices. Helix security reaching the shaft entrance. A plasma bolt seared past, close enough that he felt its heat. "They're shooting at us." Lyra's voice held disbelief. "With the baby here, they're insane." "They're desperate," Marcus corrected, climbing faster despite the burning in his muscles, which makes them more dangerous. Med-admin's voice crackled, distorted. "I am losing connection." Emergency bay door unlocked. "Get inside." "I can hold." The AI's voice cut out, replaced by an automated warning. "Attention. Station systems experiencing unauthorized access. Lockdown protocols may be compromised. All personnel report to designated safe zones." They were 10 meters from the emergency bay entrance when Marcus's hand slipped. Exhaustion and sweat combined at the worst possible moment. And suddenly he was falling, Lyra's scream in his ears, the medical pod swinging wildly. Orion caught them. The dog had dropped below, positioning himself on a maintenance platform Marcus hadn't seen. When they landed on him, his augmented structure absorbed the impact, distributing the force across his reinforced skeletal system. It must have hurt, but Orion just licked Marcus's face once before pushing them toward the emergency bay door. The door slid open at their approach, Med-admin's last gift, before losing access, and they stumbled into a room that looked like something from a dream. The emergency bay was designed for mass casualty events, with space for 100 patients and equipment to treat nearly any species known to civilized space. The walls were lined with incubators of all sizes, glowing with soft bioluminescent light. Medical drones hovered in sleep mode, waiting to be activated. And in the center of the room, an emergency transport pod, big enough for 3 humans, sat on its launch platform. The roof, Marcus realized. Med-admin was guiding us to an escape pod, but before they could reach it, the emergency bay's main doors, the ones facing the public, corridors exploded inward. This time, the Helix security forces didn't hold back. A dozen armored figures poured through, weapons raised, and leading them was someone who made Marcus's blood run cold. The woman wore a white lab coat over corporate executive attire, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. She was beautiful in a manufactured way, with the kind of symmetrical features that came from expensive genetic modification. When she smiled, it didn't reach her eyes. "Lyra of Zephyra," she said, her voice carrying across the bay with augmented clarity. "You've caused us quite a bit of trouble. And you," her gaze fixed on Marcus. "Mechanic Chen, I've reviewed your file. No criminal record, decent work history, no obvious reason for this suicide mission. Why are you dying for an alien and her bastard hybrid?" "She has a name," Marcus said quietly. "Arya, and she's not an asset or a product or property. She's a person." The woman laughed. "How wonderfully naive. Do you have any idea what she represents? Human genetic compatibility with one of the most biologically advanced species in known space. The medical applications alone are worth trillions. The military application, she shook her head. No, Mr. Chen, that child is far too valuable to be raised by her criminal mother. Over my dead body, Marcus said. That can be arranged. The security forces raised their weapons, but before they could fire, the emergency bay's automated systems came online. Later, Marcus would realize that MedAdmin had never fully lost control of the station. The AI had been playing dead, conserving its access for this moment. The emergency bay's defensive systems activated with brutal efficiency. Medical drones that had been hovering peacefully suddenly deployed sedative gas. Incubators opened, releasing clouds of cryogenic vapor that flash-froze the nearest security officers. The floor itself became electrified, and several armored figures dropped, convulsing. Go! MedAdmin's voice thundered through every speaker. I cannot hold them long. The pod is programmed for the city below. Go! Marcus didn't hesitate. He ran toward the transport pod, Lyra in his arms, Orion racing ahead to trigger the pod's entry system. The medical pod containing Arya floated alongside them, its internal systems keeping the newborn safe from the chaos erupting behind them. The transport pod's door hissed open. The interior was cramped but functional. 3 crash seats, basic life support, and emergency rations. Marcus strapped Lyra into one seat, secured the medical pod containing Arya between them, and fell into the 3rd seat just as Orion leaped inside. Sealing, the pod's automated system announced. Launch in 5 seconds. Through the transport pod's small window, Marcus caught one last glimpse of the emergency bay. The executive woman was screaming orders, but her security forces were in chaos, fighting against the station's automated defenses. And there, flickering above them all, was MedAdmin 7's hologram, its blue light pulsing with what might have been defiance. Thank you, Marcus whispered. Protecting patients is my prime directive. The AI's voice came through the pod's comm system. Even if it costs me everything. Goodbye, Marcus Chen. Goodbye, Lyra of Zephyra. Goodbye, Arya, may you find sanctuary. Then the floor dropped away. The emergency transport pod plummeted through Neo-Terra Station's launch tube, accelerating at a rate that pressed Marcus back into his crash seat with bruising force. Through the small viewport, he watched the station's interior flash past. Residential levels, commercial districts, industrial sectors, all reduced to streaks of light and motion. Beside him, Lyra groaned. Her hand pressed against the medical foam sealing her surgical site. The violet of her skin had taken on an unhealthy gray tinge, and Marcus could see her veins still pulsing that alarming red. Hang on, he said, knowing it was useless. We're almost out. The medical pod containing Arya remained suspended between their seats, its internal gravity dampeners keeping the newborn in peaceful stasis. Through the transparent cover, Marcus could see her eyes were open, tracking movement with an intelligence that seemed impossible for someone minutes old. Orion whimpered from his position on the floor. The dog's augmentations gave him resistance to motion sickness, but even he looked uncomfortable with the speed of their descent. The pod's computer spoke in a calm, automated voice. Approaching city-level insertion point. Please remain seated. Gravity compensation engaging in 3, 2, 1. The sensation of falling stopped abruptly as the pod's emergency thrusters fired, converting their vertical descent into a controlled glide toward the city below. Marcus's stomach lurched, but he forced himself to look out the viewport. Neo-Terra City sprawled beneath the station like a luminescent garden. The megacity covered hundreds of square kilometers, its towers reaching toward the artificial sky created by the station's atmospheric dome. Hover traffic moved in organized streams between buildings, and holographic advertisements painted the night in every color imaginable. It was beautiful. It was dangerous. And somewhere down there they needed to find safety. Computer, what's our destination? This pod is programmed to land at coordinates 47.3892, 122.5483. Ground level emergency medical facility. Arrival in approximately 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Marcus tried to slow his racing heartbeat, tried to think. Helix would have tracked their descent trajectory. By the time they landed, corporate security would already be mobilizing ground forces. They needed a plan beyond just running. Lyra, how are you holding up? Her amber eyes opened, focusing on him with effort. I felt better, but I'm alive. Aria is alive. That's all that matters. When we land, I don't know how much time we'll have. Is there anyone you can trust? Anyone who can help? Lyra's expression darkened. My people made their choice. When they allied with Helix, there's no help coming from Zephyra. But there are others, refugees like me, people who've escaped corporate control. They operate in the Undercity, the levels below street level, where station security doesn't patrol. The Undercity? Marcus had heard stories about Neo-Terra's lower levels, crime, poverty, and people who'd fallen through society's cracks, but also communities that looked after their own, that survived despite the corporations trying to squeeze every credit out of them. There's a woman, Lyra continued, her voice strengthening slightly. Goes by the name Mother Talitha. She runs a sanctuary for alien refugees. If we can reach her, she'll protect us. She has no love for Helix. Do you have coordinates? No, the sanctuary moves, changes locations. But the entrance? I remember it was near a power distribution hub. Sector 7 Delta, I think. There was a sign, a symbol painted on the wall. A blue circle with wings. It wasn't much, but it was more than nothing. Marcus pulled up the pod's navigation system, trying to plot a route from their landing site to Sector 7 Delta. It would take them through some of the most dangerous parts of the city, gang territory. No-law zones, places where even police drones didn't venture. 1 minute to touchdown, the computer announced. Please prepare for landing sequence. Marcus secured his harness, checked that Lyra and the medical pod were properly strapped in, and put a hand on Orion's head. The dog looked up at him. Bioluminescent patches pulsing blue again. Calm, ready, trusting. Good boy, Marcus whispered. Just a little further. The emergency medical facility came into view, a squat, reinforced structure painted in high-visibility orange. It was designed for industrial accidents, equipped to handle everything from radiation exposure to chemical burns. But as the pod descended toward its landing platform, Marcus saw something that made his blood freeze. Helix security forces were already there. 3 armored vehicles surrounded the landing platform, and at least 20 personnel waited in formation, weapons drawn. The white-coated executive from the station was there too, her expression triumphant as she looked up at their approaching pod. Computer, abort landing. Find alternate. Emergency protocols override all commands. Landing sequence cannot be aborted. Of course not. The pod was designed for medical emergencies, programmed to get patients to care as quickly as possible. It couldn't be hijacked or diverted, which usually was a safety feature. Now it was a death sentence. 30 seconds to touchdown. Marcus's mind raced through impossible scenarios. Fighting wasn't an option, they were outnumbered, outgunned. And he was protecting 2 injured people and a newborn. Running wouldn't work. The pod would lock down once it landed, trapping them until medical personnel could extract them safely. Orion growled low and continuous. The dog had seen what Marcus saw. They were out of options. Then Lyra spoke, her voice surprisingly calm. Marcus, when we land, trust me. No matter what happens, trust me. Before he could ask what she meant, the pod struck the landing platform. The crash was gentle, the pod systems were excellent, but Marcus felt his teeth click together from the impact. The door's automatic locks disengaged with a hiss, and immediately armored hands were reaching in, grabbing him, hauling him out. Get them! The executive's voice cut through the chaos. Secure the hybrid first. The mother is secondary, the asset is the priority. Marcus struggled, trying to reach Lyra, trying to protect Aria's medical pod, but there were too many hands, too much force. He caught a glimpse of Orion launching himself at a security officer, teeth bared before someone's armored fist caught Marcus in the stomach, driving the air from his lungs. They were separating them. Lyra was being pulled one direction, the medical pod containing Aria another, Marcus a third. This was it, they'd failed. After everything, Helix had won. Then Lyra screamed. It wasn't a sound of pain or fear. It was something else entirely. A resonance that seemed to vibrate through Marcus's bones, through the metal platform, through the very air. Her veins blazed red bright crimson, and the security officers holding her stumbled back, their armor smoking where they'd touched her skin. I am Lyra, 3rd daughter of the ocean depths. Her voice carried harmonics that no human throat could produce. I invoke sanctuary protocol under the Treaty of 3 Worlds. This child is under my protection and the protection of all civilized peoples. Any who would harm her forfeit their right to mercy. The executive woman laughed. Treaties don't apply to corporate assets. Your people sold you to us, remember? You have no rights we're bound to respect. She didn't finish the sentence. The sky exploded with light. Marcus had never seen a Zephyran warship before. Few humans had. Lyra's people rarely left their water world, preferring to stay out of galactic politics. But there was no mistaking what descended through the clouds above the city. It was massive, easily a kilometer long, its hull covered in patterns that seemed to flow like water. Bioluminescent arrays ran along its length, pulsing with the same colors Marcus had seen in Lyra's veins. And as it descended, the ship began to sing, a sound like whales calling across deep oceans. Beautiful and terrifying. Sanctuary protocol acknowledged. A voice boomed from the ship, translated into standard but retaining an aquatic quality. The third daughter has invoked treaty protections. All parties will stand down immediately or face consequences under interstellar law. The Helix security forces hesitated, looking to their executive for orders. The woman's face had gone pale, her calculated confidence cracking. "You can't be here," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "This is corporate space. Your people have no jurisdiction. The Treaty of Three Worlds predates your corporation by 600 years, the Zephyran ship responded. It supersedes local jurisdiction when sanctuary protocol is invoked. You will release the third daughter, the hybrid child, and their protectors immediately. You have 1 minute to comply." A hatch opened in the ship's underside, and figures began to descend, not in drop pods or shuttles, but swimming through the air itself. Marcus realized the Zephyrans were surrounded by fields of water, held in place by technology he couldn't begin to understand. They moved like dolphins, graceful and powerful, touching down on the landing platform with weapons that seemed to be part of their bodies, organic technology, or technological organisms, impossible to distinguish. The executive woman looked at her security forces, at the Zephyran warriors at the massive ship above them. Marcus could see the calculation in her eyes, the cost-benefit analysis. Finally, she nodded. "Stand down. Release them." The hands holding Marcus disappeared. He stumbled forward, catching Lyra as she collapsed, her display of power having drained what little strength she had left. Orion rushed to their side, hackles still raised, growling at the Helix personnel. One of the Zephyran warriors approached, a tall figure whose water field revealed intricate patterns of bioluminescence beneath translucent skin. When they spoke, their voice held grief and joy in equal measure. "Sister," they said, and Marcus realized this was family. "You were thought lost. When you disappeared from the diplomatic envoy, we feared, but you invoked sanctuary. The signal reached us and we came." Lyra looked up, tears streaming down her face. Those luminescent pearl-like tears Marcus had seen before. "Kai, you came. I knew you would." "I knew." The warrior Kai knelt beside them, their water field expanding to encompass both Lyra and the medical pod. When the water touched the pod's surface, it seemed to merge with it, and suddenly Marcus could see inside more clearly. Arya floated in the field, her tiny body relaxing, a smile on her impossibly small face. "A hybrid," Kai breathed. "Sister, do you understand what you've created? Human and Zephyran genetics aren't supposed to be compatible. This child shouldn't exist. And yet, she's beautiful," Lyra whispered. "And she's free. That's all that matters." Kai stood, their attention fixing on Marcus. "You protected my sister. You helped bring this child into the world. You have earned the gratitude of the ocean depths. What is your name, human?" "Marcus Chen, and this is Orion." He put his hand on the dog's head. I couldn't let them hurt her. It wasn't right." "Just and right are powerful concepts," Kai said, and something in their tone suggested they were smiling behind the water field. "Stronger than any weapon. Come, all of you. We must leave before Helix musters forces we cannot counter. My ship awaits." The Helix executive stepped forward, her composure returning. "You can't take them off-world. The child is under treaty protection." Kai cut her off. "As is my sister. As is Marcus Chen and his companion animal, by virtue of their role in this rescue. If your corporation wishes to challenge this, it may bring suit before the Interstellar Court on Nexus Prime. The waiting list for hearings is approximately 70 years. Until then, they are beyond your reach." The executive's jaw clenched, but she said nothing. There was nothing to say. Helix might be powerful in corporate space, but the Treaty of Three Worlds was backed by civilizations that had been traveling between stars when humans still huddled in caves. Marcus scooped Lyra into his arms once more, and together with Orion and the medical pod containing Arya, they followed Kai toward the ascending column of light that would carry them to the Zephyran ship. Below them, Neo-Terra City continued its neon dance, unaware that something extraordinary had just occurred. And above them, the stars waited, full of promises and possibilities that Marcus had never dared to imagine. 3 days later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Zephyran ship Tidal Crown, watching Neo-Terra Station shrink in the viewport. The station was a glittering diamond against the velvet black of space, growing smaller with each passing moment. Beside him, Orion sat peacefully, his bioluminescent patches pulsing a contented blue. The dog had adapted to zero gravity faster than Marcus, something about his augmentations making the transition smoother. Now he enjoyed floating through corridors, chasing after small fish that the Zephyrans kept as pets. Beautiful, isn't it? Lyra's voice came from behind him. Marcus turned to find her approaching, moving with more strength than she'd had since the chase began. Her violet skin had returned to its normal hue, the gray exhaustion replaced by healthy luminescence. In her arms, wrapped in a blanket that seemed to be woven from water itself, was Arya. The baby was awake, her amber eyes tracking everything with that same uncanny awareness. When she saw Marcus, she made her wind chime sound and he felt his heart melt. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Better. The medical facilities here are, well, they're designed for my people. I'm healing faster than I could have on Neo-Terra." Lyra stepped up to the viewport, looking out at the stars. "And we're safe. For the first time in months, we're safe. Where are we going?" "Zephyra, my homeworld. Kai has secured council permission for us to return. And for you." She looked at him with something complicated in her expression. "They've offered you asylum, sanctuary, a place in our world if you want it." Marcus thought about Neo-Terra Station. His job, his small quarters in the residential district, his routine life of maintenance schedules and diagnostic reports. It seemed like something from another lifetime. "I'd like that," he said quietly. "If I'm welcome. You saved my life. You saved Arya's life. You gave up everything to help people you didn't know, for no reason except that it was right." Lyra shifted Arya in her arms, and the baby reached out, her small hand grasping Marcus's finger with surprising strength. "You'll always be welcome." Kai appeared in the doorway, their water field shimmering. "We're approaching the transit gate. Once we jump to hyperspace, Neo-Terra will be 3 weeks behind us." "Sister, you should prepare Arya. The transition can be disorienting for infants." "I will, thank you, Kai." Lyra smiled at Marcus. "Come with me. I'd like you to see our world when we arrive. There aren't really words in standard, but it's beautiful. Oceans deeper than your tallest mountains. Cities that float and swim and sing, you'll see." Marcus followed her through the ship's corridors, Orion padding alongside. As they walked, crew members, Zephyrans moving through their water fields, nodded respectfully. Word had spread about the human who'd helped save the third daughter. Marcus found himself the recipient of gestures he didn't quite understand, but that felt like acceptance. They reached Lyra's quarters, a space filled with flowing water sculptures and soft bioluminescent lighting. She settled into a resting alcove designed for her physiology. Arya cradled against her chest. "When Arya is older," Lyra said softly, "I'll tell her about the day she was born, about the station alarms and the chase through corridors, about the human mechanic and his brave dog who risked everything, about Medadmin 7 who sacrificed itself to save us. I'll make sure she understands what was done for her." "Just tell her she was loved," Marcus said. "Even before she was born, she was loved. That's the important part." Arya made her wind chime sound again, and her hand squeezed Marcus's finger. Her eyes, so wise, so aware, seemed to promise that she would remember, that she would understand. The ship shuddered gently as it entered the transit gate. Through the viewport, Marcus watched reality twist and fold, stars stretching into lines of light as they slipped into hyperspace. Neo-Terra, Helix Corporation, the life he'd known, all of it fell away like autumn leaves. Ahead lay Zephyra, the ocean depths, and a future he'd never imagined. And as the ship sailed between the stars, carrying its precious cargo toward home, Marcus Chen looked at Lyra and Arya and Orion, his strange new family, and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope, the kind that glows like bioluminescent veins, the kind worth fighting for, the kind worth saving. The end. Before we go, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching this video from? Drop your location in the comments below. We read every single message and love connecting with our global community. And if you enjoyed this story of courage, connection, and hope among the stars, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got more incredible tales of sci-fi adventure coming your way. Until next time, keep looking up at the stars and imagining the possibilities.